Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 315. Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Well, today is going to be a fun and interesting episode. I've been helping one of my clients as she's been going through the cold or the flu, and her daughter caught it. And I wrote out all the things that I tell all my clients to do to help them beat the cold or flu quickly, support the body's ability to heal itself, and also to mitigate the symptoms, all the suffering from the cold and flu. And as I was writing out everything I always share with my clients, I thought, man, I really should sit down and record this for you guys, because I know that we're full on into flu season, and I know you guys would love to have the effective natural remedies that my whole family uses and that all my clients use to feel better faster and to help mitigate those just nasty symptoms of the cold or flu. So today is going to be me sharing with you the really powerful tips. You're going to want to make sure you remember episode 315. Just keep that filed away back in your mind somewhere, put a pin in it. And if you or your friends ever come down with the sniffles, this is when you want to go back and remember this episode. I'm going to make sure in the show notes to have all of the recipes that I'm going to talk about today, so you'll have all the actionable steps available. Before we get into the things to do when you have the flu or cold, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the immune system and preventive medicine. So first of all, what is the immune system? I think everyone's heard of white blood cells. We have a lymph system, which is really interesting. If you ever just go Google lymph system and look at some pictures to get an understanding of what it is. So blood circulates through the heart to the lungs. It gets oxygenated, and then it gets pumped out to all the cells of the body. And this is how the body gets all the oxygen and the nutrition to the 37.2 trillion cells in your body. I mean, it is just the most intricate highway system you could ever imagine. And then the nutrition and the gases go across the barrier into the tissue, the space in between the cells, and then go into the cell. The lymph system is what collects that fluid from the cells, from the space in between the cells, and brings it all the way back up into the circulatory system where the blood is. So lymph looks a lot different than blood, and it doesn't contain any red blood cells, but the white blood cells get to go into the lymph system. When you experience a virus or a bacteria, your lymph system will detect it as it flows through the lymph system, and the lymph nodes will become hard. That's why, around your throat, the doctor will feel around your throat. Oh yeah, I can feel that, those hard nodules. That's a good thing. It's a really good thing when you have that. That means that your lymph system, it's created like a dungeon where it's cut off. Both doors on either side have shut down, and it holds the bacteria or the virus inside those lymph nodes while it brings in the lymphocytes, which are the white blood cells, to come and attack them and win that fight. But while we're mounting this defense and winning the fight against the bacteria or the virus, we are feeling miserable. We've got a cough, we have maybe a sore throat or a scratchy throat, we got a sinus issues, maybe we got the chills or we have a fever. We're just not feeling very good at all. And so there are things that we can do to definitely help mitigate those feelings. Other parts of our immune system include the white blood cells, the spleen, the bone marrow, the tonsils, and the thymus, which make the antibodies. And so all of these different components, it's not just one location in the body, it is spread out. The immune system is spread out throughout the whole body, although most of it is concentrated around the digestive system, which makes so much sense because that's where one of the main areas where viruses and bacteria can get into our body is through our digestive system. So we have to make sure that our gut is always healthy. Eating a diet that supports gut health is so important because It is our first defense when it comes to our immune system. And if we eat poorly and we allow ourselves to have prolonged symptoms like heartburn, gas, diarrhea, or constipation, what we're actually doing is constantly damaging our ability to have a strong and vibrant immune system. And that later down the road, as you know, if you have a weak immune system, you can develop cancer. I mean, these are things that on a daily basis, if we just put up with things like heartburn or just keep taking medications which will suppress the symptom but not address the root cause, then we could be setting ourselves up for major health issues in the future. That's why we must listen to the symptoms of the body. And we must address those small problems that might just be like little nagging problems, like maybe you get headaches 3 days a week, or maybe you have a little bit of heartburn, a little bit of indigestion, or a little bit of constipation, but it's not that big of a deal. Well, it is, because it starts small and it gets bigger over time. So we want to address it when it's small. So just know that your immune system and your gut health are linked and are very important. They both play a role together. We need to look at the raw building blocks the body needs to make an immune system. The immune system largely is made up of protein, but in order to have a healthy immune system response, the body needs 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, the 2 essential fatty acids, and the 60 trace minerals and elements. So the body needs all these micronutrients. And then on top of that, there's thousands of phytochemicals, of amazing antioxidants that come from our food. So the best way to get that is to eat a variety of color by fruits and vegetables, choosing a variety every day. In fact, I really recommend you just try this for 1 week. Go out, pick a bunch of different kinds of vegetables, maybe some you've never even eaten before, and eat 2 cups at each meal. And you know what? That sounds like a lot of food, but it's actually not. I steam a bunch of broccoli yesterday, and it was so delicious. I didn't add anything to it. I just steamed it and ate 2 cups at each meal. It's not that much food when you put steamed broccoli into 2 cup measuring cup. But try that. And choose a variety. So you might have some purple one day, and then you have red the next day, and you have green the next day, and you have orange the next day. Just find all the colors. Don't really get obsessed or focus on which vegetable. Think about colors. So choose to eat the different varieties of colors, because what you're going to get from that are all the antioxidants and the wonderful thousands of phytochemicals that help the body to build everything it needs to build to make a healthy immune system. So that's really important. Now, many people find that when they drink cow milk, there's over 50% of the population finds that when they drink cow milk, it actually decreases their immune response. Some people find that drinking cow milk is healthy for them and gives them health. But a lot of people don't. And so you need to figure out if it's part of your makeup, if cow milk is really healing for you. And if it's not, if you know that when you drink too much of it, or you eat yogurt or eat ice cream or whatever, you have to clear your throat a bunch, or you get a sore throat, or you get burning eyes, or maybe you get a gastrointestinal upset. If you have any symptoms that come from cow milk, consider going 100% cow milk free. No yogurt, no cheese, nothing. Just go 100% free of it for 30 days. And you can do there's tons of alternatives to cow milk, lots of plant-based alternatives. And then after 30 days, reintroduce it and see how you feel. And if you just feel absolutely horrible, then you know your body is trying to tell you that it does not like it. See, the problem with drinking cow milk is that it is drinking the immune system of another animal. So it does, for some people, actually negatively affect our immune system and our immune response. So just consider, I'm not going to get on my high horse and tell everyone they have to be dairy-free, because I'm dairy-free. And I'm a really big believer that going dairy-free can be really good for a lot of people. But I also know that there are some people out there that it has been transformational to drink organic or drink very healthy, maybe straight from the cow, raw dairy, that has been healthy for them. And so need to decide for yourself. But I'd like you to know that naturopaths, for example, when children come to them, when the parents come with the children and they have constant sore throats or constant ear infections, the number one thing naturopaths do is get the child off of cow dairy, and the infections go away. And that's what happened to me. I was 6 years old. I was sickly. I was constant infections. And my naturopath said to my mom, "You have to get her off dairy." And it was like overnight. Like, I stopped drinking dairy, and the next day I was feeling better. I mean, it was just crazy how much of an impact it had. But that's the number one cause of ear infections in children. So if you had ear infections as a kid, just think back or ask your mom, then maybe you should just avoid cow dairy. So that's a big thing, is to look at our diet and look what can build a healthy immune system and what can tear down our immune system. Another food that tears down our immune system is processed sugar. It actually makes some of the white blood cells go to sleep. There's a type of white blood cell that can't function correctly in the presence of sugar. So eating lots of processed sugar, eating foods that contain flour, any kind of flour, gluten-free or gluten, I don't care. Once something is processed into a flour, it spikes blood sugar, whether you have blood sugar issues or not. So consider just decreasing those foods in your diet, especially when you want to support a healthy immune system. I'm not saying you have to be celibate and avoid them completely, although you could give that a shot. Some people really see benefit to going grain-free, totally grain-free, especially over the winter, but you need to just play around with it yourself and just know that in the presence of sugar, we are lowering the immune system, and we're also potentially feeding an infection, things like candida or these opportunistic germs. We're giving them fuel because they live off of sugar. It's like, imagine if you put a bacteria in a petri dish and put sugar in the petri dish with the bacteria would just go nuts. It loves it. So you're creating this little petri dish inside you every time you fill your body with sugar. So just consider lowering or completely eliminating sugar, any kind of processed sugar. That includes agave, honey, everything but stevia, because stevia doesn't create sugar in the body. It just tastes sweet because it's an herb. So those are the things that you can do every day, just healthy foods to support a healthy gut and a healthy immune system. There's a really cool exercise you can do to strengthen the lymphatic system. It's called rebounding. You get this small trampoline, and it looks like something kids would jump on, but they actually make them for adults. They go for around $300, but you know what? Go on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp or Craigslist and look for one used or used locally in your area. And sometimes people are selling them for $70. So these things, and sometimes you can even get one that folds and you can put it away, but it doesn't take up that much space. And what you'll do is you jump on it for 10 minutes, and you actually don't jump to the point where your feet are leaving the mat. If your feet are leaving the mat, then you're not rebounding. So you're jumping. What you want to do is just bounce. Your feet are staying on the mat and you just bounce. It's actually a lot of fun. It becomes very hypnotic. You can do it to music, you can watch TV. It's kind of hard to read a book, but you could just be talking to people. So you just bounce while you breathe. In fact, doing some slow, deep breathing while you're bouncing is great. And some of these rebounders for adults have a handlebar, so you can just put your hands on the handlebar and just very gently bounce. Because the lymph system doesn't have a heart to beat it, to make it move, the only chance the lymph system has to make the lymph fluid move through the lymphatic system is when we move, our joints. So if we sleep all night and then wake up and then sit in a car and then go to work and sit at work and then come home and sit on the couch and then go to bed, there's almost no movement for the lymph system. So either get your 10,000 steps in, or you can do things like deep breathing, yoga, just moving your joints. Every time you move your joints, you're pumping the lymph system. And when you do rebounding, just 10 minutes a day, and sometimes people find it it really helps them to do it 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. You're circulating all the lymph fluid away from the cells and back into the body. People who have puffy ankles by the end of the day or feel like their legs are a little bit swollen by the end of the day will also see benefit to this. But by doing this, you will notice you have way more energy. You feel calmer. This stimulates that rest and digest response of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it is so supportive of your immune system because what it does is it helps pull all that fluid out and back in through the lymph nodes, where the lymph nodes are detecting whether you have viruses or bacteria, and they can catch something quicker by doing that. So it's incredibly healing. And it's a lot of fun, and it only takes 10 minutes a day, and you could try it once or twice a day, and you will start to see some great results. So that's rebounding. And like I said, go find one that's used, save you a few $100s, and it's kind of fun to get one used. But the ones that are really, really good go for like $300-400 on Amazon. To give you an example of the ones I'd recommend, I'll make sure there's a link to one in the show notes so you can see the kind I'm talking about. Make sure you don't get the kind that are made for kids. You have to get the ones made for adults so that they, because they do reinforce them for body weight. So the ones that are made for kids you step on and your feet are going to go to the ground. It won't be helpful. As I mentioned before, the essential nutrients the body needs, the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, and the fatty acids, are so important, especially in the wintertime. Vitamin D, which is actually a hormone the body makes when we expose our skin or our eyes to direct sunlight. We can't make it if we're wearing a bunch of clothes and we're behind a window. Even if the sunlight goes to the window, the body won't be able to produce the vitamin D. The vitamin D levels you're looking for between 50 and 60. Some doctors want it to be higher than 60, but if you do take your blood work, which you should do once a year, just to test your vitamin D levels, and it is between 50 and 60, great, I'm really happy. If it is below 50, you absolutely want to get on a vitamin D supplement. If it is below 30, some naturopaths will say to take 10,000 international units for 30 days, then back down to 5,000 international units for the next 2 months, and then get your vitamin D levels checked again. If the number is not trending upwards, you want to speak to a naturopath. There can be a few reasons why it's not trending upwards when you're taking a vitamin D supplement. You could be not taking enough, your gut is not absorbing it, or you could have something going on at the level of the parathyroid or other factors that are affecting your vitamin D levels. But it is really important to have your vitamin D levels to be close to 60 when you get that blood work done. If your levels are lower than 30, you are at risk for cancer, a lowered immune system response, and lower energy. If you have fatigue, a lot of people think, oh, it's thyroid or it's iron. Not a lot of people realize that you can get fatigue from low vitamin D levels. So this is all really good reasons why you should get your vitamin D tested regularly and supplement with a good vitamin D supplement. I did a whole episode on vitamin D, which is fascinating. Dr. Heidi talks about how we actually produce vitamin D in the body. It's really neat. You can just go to learntruehealth.com and search vitamin D in the search bar to find that episode. And I definitely recommend listening to it because it's very interesting. I'm also going to make sure that I link in the show notes of this episode to a website where you can buy your own labs. It is walkinlab.com. You can buy your own lab. It's less than $100. I think it was $60 for just the vitamin D level. You buy it and then you go to your nearest lab, either Quest or LabCorp, and then they just mail you the results. Although I really do recommend you work with a professional, you definitely want to make sure that you find a great naturopath, because naturopaths are trained just like MDs. They're trained in drugs and they understand the body. They are medical doctors in that sense, but they focus so much of their work and energy towards understanding nutrition and how it heals the body, herbs, and natural medicine. And their philosophy is, let's support the body with as much nature as we can before we go to drugs. But they also believe in drug interventions when they are needed. They just don't go to them first. So that's why I recommend seeking out a naturopathic physician. Naturopaths are in many states and many provinces in Canada. And if you can't find one locally, there are some naturopaths that will do telemedicine, that will speak with you over the phone. If you want to just contact me, Ashley at learntohealth.com. If you are thinking about finding a naturopath, but you're not sure how to, feel free to reach out to me. I can definitely recommend a few that I know that do telemedicine based on your needs. If you're looking to buy really high quality supplements, you've probably heard me talk about takeyoursupplements.com. I cannot recommend them highly enough. In fact, they're the supplements that I take, my whole family takes, and has taken for the last 7 years. They're extremely high quality. So I really recommend going to takeyoursupplements.com, putting in your information, and then you'll be contacted and they'll help you for free figure out the right supplements for you, dosed on your body weight and based on your symptoms and what your health goals are. So they're really good, and they are affordable. They're pretty much the same price as all other supplements, but you're getting someone helping you. So that's why I absolutely love them. So it's not like going and buying 20 different things online and not knowing how much to take or whether it's good quality. You are getting someone who's really helping you. And the supplements are combined, so you get dose based on body weight. All the vitamins and amino acids are in one supplement, and they taste really good, and then dose it by body weight. So it just makes so much sense because it's easy to take and it's liquid. So it tastes really good. It's plant-based, and it's easy to take. So anyways, can't say enough good things about them. Love takeyoursupplements.com. Highly recommend them if you're going to go get your vitamins, your vitamin D. Definitely recommend them. Check them out. They have a whole protocol for building a healthy immune system through nutrition. It's also good to know that the supplements that they have for adults are the exact same supplements they have for kids, because they're dose based on body weight and because you can drink them. My son has been drinking their supplements since he was a baby, and they have a vitamin D spray, so the kids don't have to take a pill. It's a spray, so you would just do 2 sprays in their mouth, and it tastes really good. It tastes like oranges, and that would deliver all the vitamin D they need each day. So they have a very delicious peach drink that contains all the vitamins and trace minerals in it, and then they have a system that children can use the same supplements that adults have. So that's great. I had my pediatrician, who's a naturopath, look through all of them, and she loves them and she thinks it's wonderful for kids. I've actually had 3 different naturopath pediatricians look at these supplements, and all of them agreed that I was on the right course with what we were doing with our son. That's what I love, because they're based on body weight. You wouldn't give the same supplement to, a 150-pound woman and a 300-pound man, or to, a 100-pound kid and a 300-pound man. This whole 1-a-day pill doesn't make any sense. It's dose based on body weight, because that's as you're growing and, the bigger you are, the more nutrition your body needs, right? So another thing we see is that when people start filling up with these nutrients, their body starts functioning better, because these are the nutrients it needs, and it goes, oh my gosh, I finally have everything I need to do work. And so you develop healthier hair, skin, and nails. People's blood sugar comes down, their cravings go away, their aches and pains go away, they have more mental clarity, better energy, better sleep. Things just start to get better when you fill your body with all the nutrition that it needs, both from your diet and from your supplements. Now, you can't out-supplement a bad diet, just like you can't out-exercise a bad diet. Diet is key. Diet comes first. That's why I said no matter whether you're a meat eater or not, fill your plate every day, every plate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with a variety of colorful fruits or vegetables. Get it in you, and you will start to see a big, big difference in your health. All right, so now that we've gone through the things that you can do on a daily basis to support the immune system, let's get to it. So what I first recommend when you start to have a cold or a flu, now this does not work well for the stomach flu. So if you know stomach flu is something different, right? So we're talking about right now the typical, you're feeling the chills, you're getting a fever, maybe you're getting some congestion in your sinuses, or you're coughing. When that happens, you want to do the cold sock treatment. Doesn't that sound wonderful? So the cold sock treatment is a simple hydrotherapy technique that is especially effective for relieving nasal congestion, especially at night. And as you know, that's like the hardest time to have nasal congestion is when you're trying to go to sleep. Oh, it's so annoying. So what you want to do, and this actually has many people have experienced that this is more effective than medications like over-the-counter decongestants, especially since you don't have any negative side effects. So what you need for this, I would recommend getting 2 pairs of large cotton socks, making sure they're about 90% cotton, and then have 1 pair of wool socks, make sure they're about 90% wool. And you can go to most sporting goods stores, sell wool socks if you don't own a pair. You're going to take those 2 pairs of very large, like make sure there's as large for your feet or a little bit larger cotton socks. You're going to put them in cold water and throw them in the freezer about an hour before you need them. And then I recommend you also do this in conjunction with the hot bath therapy, which I'll talk about in a sec. So before you're about to go to bed, and if you only want to do the cold sock treatment and you're not doing the hot bath treatment, I'm going to tell you the cold sock treatment first, then I'm going to tell you the hot bath treatment, then I'm going to tell you how to combine the two, which is the perfect thing to do. I think you should combine the two. But if you don't have enough time and you just want to get into bed, here's what you do. You put your feet in hot water, so either a foot basin or in the bath for just enough, 3 minutes, just enough time to get your feet red. Now, not hot scalding, but just warm enough so you see that your feet have more circulation to them, they're warmer, great. Then what you do is you take those 2 frozen socks and you put a little bit of water on them, so now they're malleable, they're cold and they're wet, right? They're frozen, cold and wet, and they're malleable. And you put those 2 pairs of socks on, so you put a pair on each 2 socks on each foot, so you're doubling them up, and you put on the wool socks on top of that, which are dry. So you put the wool socks on, and then you go to bed. You bundle up, you get an extra blanket, maybe get your warm tea. We're going to talk about warm tea in a sec. I've got some great recipes. And you bundle up, you get an extra blanket, you wrap yourself around. Now your feet right now are going to be cold. Ew, who likes cold feet? But what's really cool is that within minutes, your feet are going to start to warm up. And as you go to sleep, you can just fall asleep at this point. Make sure your feet are covered. It doesn't work if your legs are uncovered. So your whole body needs to be like in a cocoon of blankets. Your feet are going to start to warm up. And when you wake up, your feet will be just boiling. They'll be so warm, and it's great. What happens is this has a draining effect on the sinuses. It's fantastic for bringing down the congestion. And you can even do this a few times during the night. So you can even do this during the day. If you're homesick during the day, you can do this. And then a few hours later, get out of bed and grab another pair of frozen socks. You can take a whole bunch of cotton socks and put them in water, then put them in the freezer. And you can continue to do this every few hours, or in the middle of the night if you wake up again and you need some more relief from the congestion, you can go and repeat this. But you don't have to. If you sleep through the night, great. That's wonderful. It's perfect. This technique stimulates the immune system and it also increases the lymph circulation. So it's a fantastic treatment. You want to do it for several nights in a row. When you just first catch yourself, if you're just first catching the symptoms of the cold or flu, definitely start doing this for the next 5 nights. For some people, this is enough to help blow the cold or flu out because it has this wonderful effect of stimulating the immune system. In fact, I have a friend who she did not know that she had an abscess on her brain. She had an infection that she believed was from some dental work, and she didn't have any symptoms of it. But she had a growing infection in her brain. She had just learned about the cold sock treatment. She didn't have a cold, but she wanted to do it just to see what it would feel like. The next day she woke up blind. And I know that sounds horrible, but it actually is a miracle because the cold sock treatment stimulated her immune system so much that it kicked into overdrive and detected the infection. And the temporary blindness was her brain and her immune system fighting the infection. It was a symptom that finally allowed her to know that she had that problem, but it was stimulated by this treatment. So if you have an underlying issue, which would be so rare, that's the only time I've ever heard that happen with the cold sock treatment. But when you have an underlying problem, you want to know it's there. If she hadn't done that, she may not have known she had a growing brain infection until it was too late. So this stimulates the immune system to mount a healthy response. And that is what we want. We want the immune system to be working with us and fighting for us. So do this every night. Kids can do it too. You can take safety pins to hold those socks together. You can even do it on babies. Obviously, the kids have to participate. But we do notice that children, when they do allow you to put the cold frozen socks, wet frozen socks on their feet, the cotton ones, and then put the warm wool socks, the dry wool socks over, and then safety pin them together. Children that allow you to do it fall asleep right away. Their body goes, okay, I'm ready to fight this cold, and they fall asleep right away. And children, they tend to react much quicker, so they tend to get better faster. When we use natural medicine, they react wonderfully to it. So that is one thing. So put that in the back of your mind, to have a pair of wool socks, have a few pairs of cotton socks. That's the cold sock treatment. Now, if you want to do it repeatedly, so if you want to do it once and then a few hours later do it again, you don't need to repeat having your feet in the basin or in the tub, because your feet are already warm from doing the treatment once. So all you would need to do is grab another pair of frozen socks and make them cold again make them malleable, some cold water, and then put them on and then put on the wool socks and then get back into bed and bundle up. So you don't need to repeat the step of the bath or the foot bath. Next, we'll talk about my tea recipes, because you'll need one of the teas in order to do the hot bath treatment. It is wonderful. All right. So there's 3 different kinds of teas that I'm going to talk about today. First one is fresh thyme tea. To do this, you'll need to go to a grocery store and buy fresh thyme. A lot of grocery stores these days sell herbs in a plastic pack. It's like a whole bushel of herbs. Call ahead of time, especially if you're in Canada. I noticed that not always easy to get access to fresh herbs. So go ahead and call the different grocery stores until you find one that says that they have fresh thyme. This does not work with the powdered thyme or the dried thyme. You need fresh thyme, and that's THYME. I discovered this last year when I had the worst congestion ever. I went to a naturopath, and he said that in his 15-20 years of being a doctor, he had never heard congestion this bad. It was really bad, and he recommended that I do thyme tea. And how you do it is you'll want to take about half a bushel. So if you buy one of those plastic packages with the fresh thyme in it. Just take half of it, which is kind of like a branch, basically, that has all the thyme attached to the branch. And you want to boil about 4 cups of water. Make sure you could either do it in a kettle or in a pot with a lid. And then you place take it off the stove. If it's in a pot, you place the thyme in the hot water, so it's not boiling anymore, it's just very hot. You place the thyme, it's about so it's like a whole handful basically, or half one of those clamshell packets of it. You put it in the 4 cups of water and put the lid on, and let that steep for about 6 minutes. Now you can add a little bit of stevia if you'd like, or a little bit of ginger or lemon just to make it taste good. Some people like to use local honey because there's a belief that local honey helps the immune system. If you do, use really, really sparingly, because again, all forms of sugar feed the infection and can lower the immune system. So just take that into account and then go ahead and drink it. Drink it throughout the day. I do not recommend drinking this late at night if you have a lot of lung congestion, because you'll cough a lot when you lie down. And here's why. The thyme helps to loosen up the mucus so that you can cough it out, so you can get it out, because you want to get it out. The problem is if you drink a bunch of this at night and then lie down, it's loosened up the mucus, and now you're in a position where you're going to cough more when you're lying down. So just go ahead and drink this in the morning and in the afternoon and maybe even the early evening, but don't drink it right before bed, because I have noticed that it can trigger more coughing, which would prevent you from resting, and you really want to rest all day long. So the thyme tea is wonderful. It's easy to make. It's a great decongestant. When I was very sick a year ago, I drank about 8 cups of it a day, and I went through about 2 to 4 of those packets. I believe closer to 4 of those packets. But I was also making some for my husband as well, and our son, because our whole family was sick. And that's another story for another day. But there's a really interesting, and I learned a very interesting reason why we all got sick, and I've since learned from that. And that's why this year we didn't get sick. So very excited to learn about the fresh thyme tea. The congestion was so bad that I would have been willing to go on some form of medication to help relieve it. But when I started drinking the thyme tea, I was absolutely amazed that it worked so well. If you don't notice that it works to help you move the congestion, you may not be drinking enough of it, or you may not have made it strong enough. So just take that into consideration. Thyme is also a great antiseptic, so it's going to help with killing the bacteria and the viruses. So it's a wonderful herb in that way. So that's tea number 1. Tea number 2 is something super easy. It just takes water and tea bags, so super easy. One of my favorite all-time teas is called throat coat tea. This stuff is absolutely amazing, and it does just that. If you have a scratchy, itchy, sore throat, or dry throat, anything where your throat is irritated, it's a wonderful tea. Now, definitely buy a few boxes of it. I did notice that I need to make that tea fairly strong. So in about 16 ounces, I would use 2 tea bags. So 16 ounces of hot water, I would use 2 tea bags at a time. And sometimes I would make a whole pot with 4 to 6 tea bags. And then sometimes make a second pot. I would still use the old tea bags from the first pot and then add several new tea bags. So I try to reuse them as well. And I just found that when my throat was really bad, if I just used 1 tea bag, it didn't really relieve it. But when I did use 2 or 3 tea bags, I could definitely get relief. I mean, it was amazing. Just like the thyme tea was incredibly effective when I made it strong enough to move the congestion, the throat coat tea was better than anything I could get over the counter, plus no side effects. And they're wonderful herbs in there that just support being calm and feeling good. I'll make sure I link it in the show notes at learntruehealth.com. So for episode 315, so you know exactly which tea I'm talking about. It is by a company called Traditional Medicinals. It's an organic tea. And if you are in a country that they don't, or country or state or province where they don't have this tea available, then look it up, find what the herbs are, and go find a tea similar enough to it. I really do recommend it though. So they also have another one called Breathe Easy. I like it. I drank it. I didn't see huge results like I did with the Time tea, but it's a great blend, great brand, and I did try both of them when I was sick. And like I said, the throat coat tea the relief was amazing. So I was very, very happy about that. The third and final tea I'll share with you today is something from my childhood, and it's something that I think my mom must have gotten from her mom. Maybe it was passed down generation after generation. I feel like every family has a tea that is very similar to this. You can play around with the different ingredients, but I'm sure you have heard of this tea before. It's the hot water and lemon juice with a few other things in it, but basically hot water with a little bit of fresh lemons. You can also use limes if you don't like lemons. I find that, and like I said, in traditional Chinese medicine, citrus is a mucus creator. It stimulates more mucus in their belief system, in their medical system. However, I do find that the juice of 2 lemons in 4 cups of water to help cut the mucus, especially if you have a really bad sore throat. So a lot of mucus and congestion in the throat and in the tonsils. So this is the wonderful concoction my mom used to make for my sore throats as a kid, which I did have a lot when we had cow dairy in our life. And when I was 6 years old, I was constant sore throats, constant congestion until my mom found a naturopath. And when I was 6 years old, he said, remove it out of the diet. And so the whole family went dairy free. And sure enough, the congestion and the sore throats, the infections immediately went away. So this is something I remember from my early childhood. It really did help, although the root cause was from cow's milk. But this tea was wonderful for helping cut down and clear away the mucus. And we add ginger to this because ginger is so nice to calm the stomach. A lot of times when we're sick, we either have a little bit of upset in the tummy, or we just don't want to eat, and this is just, it's a nice and very soothing. It also tastes good. So you can play around with it, maybe add some more herbs, maybe add some peppermint, or take away some things that you don't like. So play with it. So basically it's very simple. 4 cups of water, boil it, then remove from heat, add the juice of 2 lemons, and make sure it's fresh lemons, not like a juice you get in a bottle. The fresh juice of 2 lemons, add a little bit, just like half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That's the ground spice. And then 1 thumb of grated ginger. Now you can add stevia for taste. Some people add maple syrup or honey, or just drink it plain. But just at its very simplest, it's lemon juice and water. Now my mom used to do lemon juice, the water, the cayenne, and she would add honey, and it tastes delicious, and it would help relieve that pain in my throat. And then later we added ginger to it and found it was so nice with ginger as well. So that's my third tea. Pick one depending on your symptoms. So the time I would do when I have just chest, so lung congestion or bronchial congestion. The one I just mentioned with the hot water and lemon is something when it's more in the throat and lots of congestion that you want to break up in the throat. And then the throat coat tea is wonderful when you want to relieve. Now you don't necessarily have congestion in the throat, but you have the scratchy, itchy, dry, like your eyes are watering. That kind of throat feeling. Go with a throat coat tea. It's so soothing. So those are my 3 wonderful tea formulas. You needed to know these before we move on to the bath, which we'll get to in a minute. But first I have to tell you about Olbas. So Olbas I discovered, this must have been in the late 90s. I had a bad cold. This was back when I lived in near Bracebridge, Ontario. So I was living in Muskoka in Ontario, and I went to the one little tiny, the Bracebridge was like a population 18,000 people, and we had one little tiny health food store, and I practically lived in it. I loved it so much, and I had such a bad cold, so I went there, and I'm searching through the aisles. I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of natural remedy for this. And I was a teenager at the time. And the owner of the store says, "Have you tried Olbas?" I remember it. It's burned into my memory because it was like, what? No, you mean there's something I haven't heard of? And she told me how to use it. I went home and it was like a miracle. This stuff's amazing. So Olbas, it's Olbas. I'll make sure a link to it's in the show notes so you can find it. It's funny because on the package it says it's massage oil. It is not massage oil. It's 100% pure essential oils. It smells just like Vicks Vapor Rub because a lot of this essential oils used in Vicks Vapor Rub are also in Olbas. So Olbas is a bunch of essential oils that are perfect for the respiratory system. Now, there are other essential oils that are good for the respiratory system. For example, frankincense is really good for the respiratory system as it opens up all the airways. Frankincense is really good for asthmatics. Because it helps them as they're inhaling the frankincense. They'll take slow, deep, concentrated breaths. They'll sit there and almost like a meditation, do slow, deep breaths in and out with the frankincense, and that's really good for people who want to learn how to calm themselves and calm an asthmatic attack. The frankincense is linked to so many other things, but it's really good for the lungs. Frankincense is not in Olbas. Eucalyptus, I don't believe, is in Olbas either. And eucalyptus is also fantastic for the lungs. So there are other essential oils out there you can use. If you don't have access to Olbas, that's okay. You can find other blends of essential oils that are wonderful for the congestion, but this one specifically has been my absolute favorite for many years. Now, this is particularly good if you have sinus congestion, but it can also be good if you have bronchial or lung congestion. So basically anything happening in the respiratory system, you can go with Olbas. It's fairly affordable to get a bottle. You can get large bottles or small bottles. Just make sure it's a bottle of the actual oil, because they do sell a few other products. Make sure it's not like a massage cream or something. It's just the pure essential oil, which are extracts from plants. You're only going to be using 1 or 2 drops at a time, so you don't need to get the large bottle. You can just get the small bottle to save you some money. Now, what you're going to do is you will need a big bowl or pot and a large towel. You'll fill a pot with water or a kettle with water, and you will boil it. Then you'll sit at a table, make sure that there's something underneath your bowl or your pot to protect the table, and you'll take that very hot water and put it in the bowl or the pot that you're sitting directly in front of. Make sure you also have some tissues with you. You will then take the Olbas and you'll put 1 or 2 drops into the very hot steaming water. You take your large towel and you place it over your head and then wrap it over the pot and lean over, so you don't want to burn yourself. So you're not touching the water. You're definitely several inches above it, but your head is now hovering directly over the steam that's coming off the pot, and the towel is now like a tent wrapped around, so it's capturing all the steam. You want to close your eyes because the vapors from the Olbas will burn your eyes, will sting. So close your eyes and take slow inhalations through your nose. And if you're congested, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but do your best. Then after a few minutes, and you're going to want to still have your kettle on the stove with boiling, so fill that back up before you start this process, so you have more water because you're going to want to repeat it. After about a minute or two, you'll just notice that you're not smelling the vapors anymore. Go ahead, remove the towel, blow your nose as best as possible. It will start to clear at this point. Then take the Old Bass and put a few, one or two more drops into the water. If you do too many drops, the vapors are just going to sting your eyes. It's just going to be too overwhelming, and it'll sting your lungs and your throat and your nose. So it really is, it just, less is more at this point, 1 or 2 drops. Then go ahead and repeat this. Put the towel back over your head and over that pot. Inhale the vapors for another minute as best you can through your nose. But you can also do it through your mouth to get it into your lungs. Essential oils are antiseptics, so they will kill viruses and bacteria and all the kinds of pathogens. They're just wonderful. They also really support the body they're like herbal medicine. So think about it this way. It's a form of herbal medicine, and herbs are all about supporting the body's ability to heal itself. After doing this 2 or 3 times, you're going to notice the water is cooled and there's not as much vapor. Go ahead and take your kettle or your boiling water on the stove and add some more to the pot, and then repeat 2 or 3 more times. This should only take 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum. I know it sounds more labor intensive than it actually is, but what it will provide for you is immediate relief. Many times you can get your sinuses to clear completely. At this point, if you want to do a neti pot, if you're experienced with neti pots, go ahead and do your neti pot at this point because you've blown out so much of that mucus. I really recommend, if you do a neti pot, make sure you follow the directions exactly to the T. You're using boiled water or distilled water. You do not use direct tap water because you can introduce harmful pathogens to your sinuses, especially at a point in time when they are vulnerable. So you want to, if you are going to do a neti pot, and neti pots are where you pour water in through one nostril and it pours out the other. I would say only do a neti pot if you are up for it, if you're up for that experience, and follow the directions exactly on the box that you bought, that came with the neti pot. But what I'd love you to do is to make sure that you have, and here's the next thing you should always have in your medicine cabinet, a bottle of colloidal silver nasal spray. I will make sure a link to it is in the show notes. This stuff is amazing. In fact, there was this one point about 7 years ago, I had the worst sinus infection. We had just recently moved to Seattle, and then we were moved 3 months later. Our house got flooded out, and the house we were renting got flooded out. We were moving again, and it was miserable weather. I just wasn't used to the cold and the rain and the stress. It was just so much stress. And so I got this really, really bad sinus infection that I was just like, shoot me now. It was so bad. And I couldn't rest because we were in the middle of a move, right? What was I going to do? And I learned about colloidal silver nasal spray. Well, in the presence of silver, pathogens cannot live. So imagine, I mean, what better way to kill an infection than use something? It's kind of like a silver bullet to a Wolverine or whatever. So just take that colloidal silver nasal spray, and what you do is you inhale it up your nose. Now, how you do the colloidal silver nasal spray is you take the nasal spray and sit up straight with your nose facing the wall, just like you would normally, looking at the wall, and spray 3 times while inhaling in one nostril, then 3 times inhaling in the next nostril. Then take your nose and your eyes and look up on a 45-degree angle, like you're looking at where the ceiling and the wall meet. And then spray again and inhale as you spray 3 times. You can even hold your finger over your other nostril so you're really inhaling deeply, 3 times. Spray the colloidal silver nasal spray in one nose and then in the other nostril. And then the third time you do it, make your nose point all the way up at the ceiling. So your eyes and your nose are pointing straight up at the ceiling, and do it a third time. By tilting your head in these 3 different positions while you're spraying and inhaling the colloidal silver nasal spray, you are successfully hitting all of the sinuses. I learned that from an old school naturopath. So yeah, that time about 7 years ago when I had just the worst that I've ever had sinus infection. It was so painful. I found the colloidal silver nasal spray, and that was the only thing. I didn't know about the cold sock treatment yet. I didn't have time to make tea. There was nothing else I did. I just used the colloidal silver nasal spray, and it blew the infection out. I could not believe how quickly it worked. And since then, anytime I feel like an infection's coming on or anything's happening with my sinuses, I have it right by my bedstand. I spray it at night. And if I start to feel like something's happening in the evening, I use it. And then by the morning, it's usually gone. And I've used it successfully for the last 7 years. And I find that it completely blows it out, or it really does shorten the length of an infection. So colloidal silver is absolutely amazing. You cannot overdose on it if you're just using the spray. I know some people are concerned that they're going to overdose on colloidal silver. It's very safe, and you can of course talk to your doctor, talk to a naturopath, talk to a doctor that's trained in these things. So talk to a naturopath, and they will reassure you that used appropriately, it's absolutely fine. I would say use it liberally. So every few hours use it. If you only use it once a day, it's not enough to coat the sinuses and do its job. But if you use it right after the Olbas treatment, if your sinuses are very clogged, you will find that it's more effective. So either blow your nose a lot and then use it, or do the Olbas treatment and then use it. You can do the Olbas treatment anytime you feel the congestion is just too much and you need that relief, or do it once, twice, 3 times a day. Now, I love to have Olbas on hand, and I love to have the colloidal silver nasal spray on hand at all times. They're in my medicine cabinet for these times that we feel any of these symptoms are coming on. Now for the piece de resistance, we are going to jump into the hot bath. So this hot bath treatment is to create an artificial fever. We want to create an artificial fever because pathogens cannot survive in heat, in a feverish environment. When I took pathology in college, I was fascinated to learn that because viruses and bacteria are very simple, they're made of very simple proteins, that proteins in high heat, like 104-degree fever, for example, they denature, they break down, the bonds of the protein break down. And so essentially, when we have a nice, healthy fever, we're exploding these bugs inside us. It's just wonderful. And there's part of our immune system, there's these white blood cells inside us that will not even become activated until we have a fever. So the second you start to feel like you're coming down with something, you want to, if you own a sauna, like a sunlight and sauna, jump in it. Because when you are in that wonderful heat, you are stimulating your immune system to fight for you. So it's wonderful. But if you don't have a sauna, you definitely want to do this treatment. It's the artificial fever treatment. I learned this from my dad, and I couldn't believe it. He would do this, and he was never sick. He was never sick because he'd always do this the second he felt like something was happening. So yeah, he was really good at always staying healthy and not letting a cold ever get him down. And then later in life, working with these naturopaths, I discovered that this is actually a thing and it works. And I've tried it and I've done it and it works. And I love doing it because it works. And I love telling people about it. So, and it also feels really good. So here's what you need. First, make one of your teas. You can make one that I have taught you today, or make your favorite tea, a good hot chamomile tea, for example, but make one of your teas, make it nice and hot, and make a bunch of it. Draw a hot bath, as hot as you can stand it. Don't burn yourself, but make it be so warm that you know you'll start sweating within 10 to 20 minutes while you're in it. So make it nice and warm. And take 4 cups of Epsom salt and put it in the bath as you're drawing the bath. So just always have a few bags of Epsom salt under your sink in your bathroom ready for this kind of bath. Then when you're ready to get in the bath, make sure you have extra blankets, at least 2 extra blankets on your bed ready for you, a dry towel on your bed ready for you, and hot tea at your tub. Hopefully someone is at home that you can call upon to ask for help, and I'll explain why in a sec. Then, before you get in the bath, you can put 10 drops of Olbas. Don't put any more. Put 10 drops of Olbas. Make sure as you are drawing the bath that you close the door to the bathroom so you're trapping all that wonderful heat and steam. When you put the Olbas in, put it in right before you get in the bath, but then if you can stir the water a bit just to make sure that it is spread out in the bath and mixed into the bath, that'd be great. Now, get into the bath, and one thing you can do if you can't handle the heat is you make it be like 50% full with warm water. Get in, get used to it, and then turn on the hot water. And because you'll become acclimated, you can increase the temperature far more than what you could withstand if you just jump into a hot bath. So you can just fill the bath the rest of the way with strictly hot water. When you're in a warm bath to just slowly become acclimated to it. If you're someone that is afraid that you will get headaches, sometimes people get heat headaches, take a hand towel, one that is long enough to wrap around your neck, cover it in cold water, and then wrap it around your neck. This will cool the blood flowing to your brain. This is also a great trick in the summertime if you are affected by heat, or if you ever feel like you're starting to feel fatigued from heat. Do this, and it quickly tells your brain, tricks your brain basically into thinking you're colder than you are. But it does, it will relieve that in a lot of times, that heat headache that people get when they're doing hydrotherapy. So as you're in this very warm bath, drink your wonderfully hot tea and relax and inhale. Make sure that someone is, hopefully someone is there in your home that you can call upon if you start to feel dizzy. Some people may feel lightheaded or dizzy. If you do, you can add some cold water to the bath and see if that helps. And if not, you're going to have to ask someone to help you get out of the bath. I would hate for you to get out of the bath and have a sudden drop in blood pressure and possibly faint and fall and hurt yourself. So we want to avoid that. Very few people would have that, but especially since right now, if you're doing this bath, you're likely sick. So you just want to make sure that someone is there to help you out of the bath. Stay in the bath if you can. If you don't have any dizziness, you're feeling, relatively great considering you have the cold or the flu. Stay in the bath for about 20 minutes to an hour. Do not stay in the bath longer than an hour. 20 minutes is fine. Drink your hot tea, and in fact, when you finish it, see if you can get someone to get you a second mug of hot tea. Now, hopefully you're starting to feel like you're perspiring a little bit, and this is excellent. We've increased your body temperature. This is great. If you have a sauna at home, you can jump in the sauna and do this until you start sweating. Instead of the bath. But the bath is wonderful because you're getting the nice moist heat, and you're inhaling that with the Olbas. That's helping to break things up as well. Now, when you're ready to get out, make sure you ask someone for help. And you'd like to ask them to also get you another cup of that wonderfully hot tea to have by your bedside. Dry off quickly, run to the bedroom, wrap yourself in one of the 3 blankets, wrap your head in that dry towel, get into bed, and then cocoon yourself with the other 2 blankets. You can get your spouse to help you, or your friend to help you. Make sure you're all cocooned in. At this point, I'd like you to stay there for a minimum of 1 hour. Resist the urge to throw the blankets off. You're creating an artificial fever. And continue to sip on, for the next hour, your hot tea. Now, at this point, you can fall asleep. You can take a nap if it's during the day, or you can completely fall asleep if it's at night. If you'd like to incorporate the cold sock treatment at this point, I'd suggest you do so. So while you're tucked away, you're wrapped in these blankets, these 3 blankets, and you could wrap yourself in more blankets if you want, but it's creating enough insulation to cocoon you, and to also have your head covered. So the only part of your body that's exposed to air is basically your eyes to your mouth, so that you can breathe. But that you are inducing an artificial fever. So you could do the cold sock treatment at this point, possibly get someone to help you, so you don't become uncovered too much, so you keep that heat trapped in. By doing this, you will start sweating, and that's use that one blanket I told you to wrap yourself in. That's the one blanket that's going to get really sweaty, and then when you go to sleep that night, you can remove that sweaty wet blanket and put it in the laundry, and then have a nice normal sleep underneath regular blankets. But do this and for at least an hour sweat. And like I said, sometimes people just naturally fall asleep and sleep throughout the night this way. But what you will notice is with this wonderfully induced fever is your body starts to kick in, and sometimes when we induce a fever artificially, a real fever follows, and that's great. I know a lot of people are afraid of fevers, but we don't be afraid of them. Many times a fever is very healthy, and we want one. It is when they get over 104 is when we have a prolonged 104 fever. It's when things like if you start hallucinating, or you become incoherent, or you really just feel out of it. And for a child, if you start to see that they're lethargic and out of it and they can't communicate, that's when we start to become concerned. You definitely want to talk to your doctor at that point. But if you're completely fine, if you can talk, if you can think, if someone can communicate with you, and you just feel really hot, or sometimes when we have a fever, we feel cold and we're sweating, and that's great. So just know that in most cases, fevers are very healthy. I had a wonderful doctor on the show that talked about the healing effects of a childhood fever. And in fact, what they've discovered is that when a child has a fever, it stimulates the nervous system and the stem cells to grow. And so you'll see developmental leaps in children after a fever, if you let the fever run its course. If it's a healthy fever and you let it run its course, instead of immediately putting the child on Tylenol or something like that to artificially break the fever, because we become like this society just completely afraid of the body's own ability to heal itself. When we allow the body to heal itself, but we need to monitor for those very rare times when fever becomes an issue. But for most fevers, it is wonderful and healing, and for children, it actually increases neurological development. So just think how healing it is for you. Excellent. Yeah, so that is the wonderful hot bath treatment. I just love it. And you will too. You'll notice that after you have that good sweat wrapped up in blankets, that you really feel like you have done some damage to those germs. You really feel like you're winning the battle against those germs. So keep drinking, pushing those fluids. You can also, of course, instead of these teas, you could be doing broth. If you consume animal products, do bone broths, wonderful bone broths. Or you can take an entire chicken and just simmer it all day with some bay leaves and other herbs, and some onions and carrots and celery, and just sip on that. And if you don't consume animal products, take as many vegetables as you love and simmer them for hours and just sip on that broth. And of course, add all the herbs. You could add your thyme, all the bushels of thyme to that, and make a wonderful healing vegetable broth with all these wonderful herbs as well. So just push the fluids, make sure they're hot, keep your body warm. Use the colloidal silver nasal spray as often as possible. If your infection is elsewhere, like if it's a stomach bug, definitely use ginger. You could just make it just ginger and water tea and use colloidal silver. It is wonderful in that way as well. In fact, they have done studies and discovered that colloidal silver does not harm our microbiome. How cool is that? That it'll kill foreign pathogens, but there is some really interesting reasons as to why it doesn't kill or wipe out our own microbiome like antibiotics do. So it is like a powerful antibiotic in a sense, but it doesn't have the side effects that antibiotics do. Now, I'm a believer that we should always have allopathic medicine in our tool belt along with all natural medicine. So please go see a doctor. Don't wait till it's too late. Just make sure if you start to feel too sick, like you can't breathe, you're having labored breathing, or see a child is labored breathing, go see a doctor. You want to get checked out. Don't be stubborn like I've been in the past. And I've learned my lesson. It's better to go to a doctor and discover that it's nothing than to be something really big and waiting too long to address it. So there is that fine line we need to walk between natural medicine and allopathic medicine. And we should definitely make sure that all the tools are in our tool belt. Another resource I think is really important for you to know about is homeopathy. It is so affordable. There's no expiration date on homeopathy, so you can buy these kits or the individual vials and then keep them in your medicine cabinet for when you need them. I've had Scylla Whatcott. She's a PhD in homeopathy, specifically specializing in homeoprophylaxis, which is a type of, I guess the best way to describe it is healthy, a healthy version, a natural version of immunization, because you can use it to train the immune system to mount a healthy immune response to pathogens. It's really interesting. So if you've ever wondered, is there a way to naturally create immunization without doing vaccines? Yes, you should absolutely go back and listen to my episodes. I've done 3 or 4 interviews with her about the influenza, how to use homeopathy with when you have the flu, and different homeopathic remedies for alleviating or quickly moving through the symptoms of the flu. There's all kinds of different homeopathic remedies you can use. Then we also talk about homeoprophylaxis around the flu, specifically something called influenzinum, which I really recommend. She sells it for, I believe the vial is $30, and you can make that last for several years. She teaches you how to do that. So it's something that you can actually get your entire family to take for several years. And it trains the immune system to mount a response to all of the most common forms of the flu virus. So there's at least 5 different flu strains in that homeopathic remedy. There's no side effects to homeopathy. It's very safe. You can use it with infants and elderly and everyone in between. And then we also talk about what is homeoprophylaxis, what is homeopathy, how to incorporate it into your life. So I'm going to make sure that those episodes that I've done with Scylla Whatcott are linked in the show notes of this episode, so you can go back and reference them. I'm going to link an article in the show notes of the podcast that Cilla Watcott recently wrote. It is on her website, realimmunity.org. It's called Homeopathy Shines with Influenza. This article is a wonderful resource for you. She lists the most common homeopathic remedies that you can use during the time that you have flu-like symptoms to help alleviate them. And in some cases, we have seen that homeopathy even moves people faster through the flu. In fact, back in the Spanish flu of 1918, so many people died. If they went to the allopathic hospitals and used the traditional medicine and drugs at the time, over 28% of them passed away. That was the mortality rate. But those who chose to go to the homeopathic physicians and the hospitals that only used homeopathy, and believe it or not, back then there were whole hospitals dedicated to homeopathic physicians and homeopathic medicine. And back during the Spanish flu of 1918, the mortality rate was just 1.05%. So if you compare that to the 28% of people, you had a 28% chance of dying if you had the Spanish flu and went down the allopathic rabbit hole. But if you used homeopathic medicine, you only had a 1.05% chance of dying of the Spanish flu. And we've seen this, there are many more studies since 1918 that have shown that homeopathy, first of all, does no harm and has incredible results when it comes to helping people move through illnesses faster. Cilla Watcott in our interview even says that, and she has several children that she has raised, and she did not have to have any of them on any form of antibiotics. Her whole family's been antibiotic free for 20 years, and not because they don't believe in them, but because they didn't need them. They used homeopathy. So I am not an expert in homeopathy, although I've used it in my whole life. I remember my mom giving me the little sugar tablets basically to put under my tongue, and I've always sought the advice of a homeopathic practitioner. Especially naturopaths that specialize in homeopathy are wonderful doctors to go to. You can also work with Cilla Watcott. She does take on patients around the world through Skype, and she's very busy. So if she can't take you on as a client, she could definitely recommend you to other people because she has a whole network of wonderful practitioners that she works with, and even some that she's trained. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in buying a homeopathic kit, which is great to have in your home, in your medicine cabinet, getting her influenzinum, which is a wonderful remedy to train the immune system to prevent the flu. Or if you just want to gain help in using these specific remedies when you have the cold or flu, or when your children have the cold or flu, reach out to her. Go to realimmunity.org and connect with her, and either work with her specifically or ask her to put you in contact with someone locally or otherwise, online, that she'd recommend you work with. It's very affordable, and I love how simple homeopathy is in terms of its effectiveness and the fact that it doesn't do harm. So the worst thing that could happen with homeopathy is nothing. It can just be like taking a sugar pill and it does nothing. And that's not because it doesn't work. It's because you didn't find the right remedy. And sometimes that's why it takes working with an expert. Although in the article that I'm going to link in the show notes that Cilla Watcott wrote, she does list off those most common things that you can go to and try, because you could try several of the remedies she recommends and either they work or they don't work, but they're not going to do harm. Unlike randomly taking pharmaceuticals would absolutely to try to, relieve symptoms would potentially do damage. And although we think that over-the-counter pharmaceuticals are safe, we do hear cases of kidney failure and liver failure, and in some cases death, if people use them incorrectly or if they didn't realize they had an underlying condition. that prevented their body from fully detoxing those drugs. So we really need to be careful, tread carefully if we use over-the-counter medications or prescribed medications. We really need to make sure that we're on top of understanding the side effects and the risks. Just with natural medicine also, we need to understand the risks and the side effects, because even herbal medicine, if used incorrectly, can be dangerous. So that's why it's best to make sure that natural medicine practitioners are on your team, that you build a team of medical doctors and naturopaths and homeopathic practitioners and Ayurvedic practitioners and all the different kinds of practitioners that can support you in strengthening your body, bringing it back into balance, and giving you a good and different perspective on your remedies that you're doing and on your diet and your lifestyle, because they can all give you different perspectives that come from the science that informs them. So the more perspectives we get, the better we are informed and the better we can advocate for ourselves. I'm so excited that I got a chance to share all these great tips and tricks with you. I'm just full of them. I got lots more to share with you. And in fact, in January, I'm going to be doing just that. Many of you have already signed up for the workshop that I'm doing in January. Come join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is 4 live webinars in January. And if you can't make it to the webinar, and just sign up anyway. If you're like worried that it doesn't match your schedule, sign up anyway, because you're going to have access to the replays. Please come join us. It is all about creating health habits that make a huge difference in your health and that are easy to do, that are fun, that are incredibly affordable, and that will leave you feeling healthier, feeling like your body's nourished, building a stronger immune system. You will, by the end of my 4-week worth of workshop, so by the end of January, you will have better energy, more mental clarity, and better sleep, and you'll feel happier, and you'll have more vibrance in your life. And all of that, the whole course is only $37, because I want to make it absolutely affordable to everyone. I want everyone to jump in and do it. I am limiting the space, so make sure that you jump in and sign up now. If you've been hearing me talk about it and you're like, man, I should really do that, jump on board and sign up now so that you can be part of it with us. Just go to learntruehealth.com/yes. That's learntruehealth.com/yes. Yes, you are going to jump on board and be part of our New Year's transformation. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you there. Thanks so much for being a listener. It's been great sharing these tips with you. Everything I said today is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast so that you can reference it. I'm going to make sure I have that shopping list of all the things that I recommend that you have in your medicine cabinet, so that if one of your family members or your kids or when you get sick or start to have any of these symptoms, you can immediately run to the medicine cabinet to get the Olbas and get the Coil Silver nasal spray or one of the teas. I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes of the podcast. Please share this episode with your friends who are worried about what to do when they get the flu or get sick or have a cold. And remember to save it and share it with your friends, family, and coworkers when they do get the cold or flu, because all of these tips are really effective and my clients love it when I share it with them, and I know you will too. Thank you so much for being a listener. Have yourself a fantastic day and enjoy this wonderful holiday season. It is not the flu season, people. We're taking it back. It's the fun. We're having the season of fun, okay? Let's go out there and have some fun and enjoy the rest of your day.